Hi guys! So today I decided to share with you guys the 5 things that I think made my application to UWC a strong one and that ultimately got me into UWC. Please remember, I'm not on the selection committee, so I don't know if those were the actual 5 things, but I went through everything I submitted to UWC and felt like, okay, those were the 5 things that really stood out. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. And the first thing is, I think the most obvious thing, and those were my grades. So I actually went back and got my transcripts, and I applied to UWC when I was already in 10th grade, but I hadn't completed 10th grade, so I applied with my 9th grade grades, and I actually calculated my average to give you guys an idea of where I was at the time. So in Germany, we are graded on a scale from 1 to 6, with 6 being the worst and 1 being the best. And I had an average of 1.07. That means I had 1, 2, and all the others were 1s, and that 2 was PE, because I really suck at sports. But I don't think that this is a requirement for getting into UWC. I think if you have anything like 1 point something, you're doing pretty good. Don't worry, that makes you already a strong candidate. But even if you're at a 2 point something, you know, I think anything up to a 2.5, you know, it's still good. If you're less good than a 2.5, I think you still have a chance of getting in, obviously, but I think you will need to show stronger commitment in other areas because your academic commitment isn't shown to be as strong. So I think you can definitely like make up for it, but you need to make up for it in your application with something. Alright, but I don't think grades are everything to get into UWC. I think they're a really good start, and I would always consider grades to be like a door opener, you know? If you have those amazing grades, the people who read your application are going to be like, wow, she's working really hard in school, but is she doing other things, right? Like, that gives you like a first booster kind of, and they have a positive impression, but then they want to see more. Because UWC is not just a school, and they really emphasize that on the website, and you need to show that you want more than just a school in your application. And I think one of the things that also made me a strong candidate, which is also my second point, is my subject selection. Now, in some school systems, you cannot select subjects at all, so this doesn't apply to you. If your school doesn't offer this is not for you, okay? But if it does, they want to see that you're willing to challenge yourself, that you want to do things that are a little bit different, that you're willing to experiment. And the way I did this is because my school offered bilingual classes. So I was in a class where we had different subjects being taught in English for a year, and then it changed and another subject was taught in English. So I had biology, history, and geography taught in English, but not all at the same time. It always changed each year. By joining these classes, I was able to show that I was interested in being taught in English, which is good because all United World Colleges offer being taught in English. They want to see that you're capable of that, and I already showed them that. That was great. The third thing that made me a strong applicant to UWC, and those were my extracurriculars. Now, I was crazy about extracurriculars in 9th and 10th grade. I don't know what was going on with me. And honestly, like, I look back here at my application that I sent to UWC Germany, and I'm like, how the hell did I have the time to do all of this? I don't remember being so busy. Yeah, I'm just gonna give you like a little sense of how much I was doing, and yeah, judge for yourself, I guess. Okay, so I was taking dance classes in standard dance. I was a scout. I was also part of the student council, and I was the head girl. I also wrote for the student newspaper. I was a mediator, and I was also a mentor for younger students. And I had been trained to be a junior student mentor with a focus on integrations, and also a debater. I also played volleyball, worked with younger students, and I supervised them doing their homework, and I also volunteered as a tutor for a child that could not have had access to tutoring otherwise. I also worked as a tutor. Then I had my blog, I took a lot of photos, and I volunteered over the summer working with children in a daycare. So yeah, you know, that was like kind of like doing a lot of stuff, and I did those things for a long time. Like, you know, if you do something for a year and you say, oh, you know, I'm part of the student newspaper since 2 months ago, that's like, okay, you just did this because you really wanted this to be in your application, right? But most of these things, I started them in 7th grade and I just kept doing them. And I added more and more. But if you're only having like one extracurricular and you're like, oh my god, am I still a good fit because this German girl had like over 10? Yes, you are. If you're so passionate about one thing and you're spending all your time on this, by all means, please apply to UWC. 4th thing that got me into UWC is the letters of recommendation I submitted. And here I would like to say something. Please be smart about who you ask to write your letter of recommendation, okay? Don't just ask the teacher you like, ask the teacher that likes you back. Because you want a teacher to write something good about you. And also don't ask the teacher who you get along with really well, but in whose subject you don't participate in at all, okay? Because that looks kind of bad. So what I did is I asked my kind of tutor, you could say. So she was like responsible for all the kids in my class and she taught me 2 subjects. One of them was a bilingual class, so that was great. And then I asked my math teacher because my math teacher had a lot of experience in writing recommendations. She had been abroad herself, so she was able to make a really good assessment of whether I would be a fit for going away from home and whether she thinks I'm responsible enough, independent enough, and whether I really have the, you know, the ability to do it. And I think that was important. And, you know, before I let them write my letter of recommendation, I actually informed them a little bit about UWC. I gave them like a little brief of, here, this is what it's about, and this is what they want from their students. And I think this is important because if you just go to your teachers and you're like, I need a letter of recommendation, and you keep it really general, they're gonna write you a really general letter of recommendation. So don't do that, because you want the letter of recommendation to tell UWC you're a great fit for those reasons, and those reasons match the criteria they look at. Now, what criteria do they look at, right? Like, that's what we all ask ourselves. Well, I went back to the way I did my research, and let me just pull it up. So I went to the German UWC website and looked at what they say the things are that they assess. Okay, so there are 3 things that they look at, and that is, first of all, the degree to which you kind of like match UWC. Like, are you really a good fit for the college, for any college? The next thing, your achievements. And I think that in terms of achievements, they probably count your extracurriculars there because they definitely look at them, but also your grades. And the last thing they look at is your personality. And your teachers will be the ones that will probably write about your personality as well. So you want to make sure that they write about a personality that matches the college and, you know, has great achievements on their record. So yeah, if you give your teachers a little bit of background on here, this is what they're looking for, they can help tailor their recommendation towards it. Number 5, the last thing that got me into UWC is my written application. So why do I think my written application got me into UWC? Honestly, this is something I've been struggling with like for so long, so I cannot guarantee you that I made a good assessment of my written application, but one thing that really made it great is that there were no spelling mistakes and no grammar mistakes. I've been reading this thing for like 100 times before sending it, and I worked on my written application for over 2 months, which is a lot for like 5 essays. They were really short, okay? But I don't regret it. I think this was time well invested, because if you don't spend as much time on your application, there are going to be mistakes. And those are going to be silly mistakes, and the people who look at your application know those are silly mistakes. And then they think it didn't matter to you enough to even put in the time. And that is not the impression you want the people reading your application to have. Okay, whatever than the fact that I didn't have spelling mistakes made my written application great. Well, I think the fact that I was really honest. Like, there was no lie or anything in my application, and you can tell when people are writing about things they've actually experienced and that they actually feel. So an example is I wrote about the illness of a very close family member, how that illness affected me and how it changed the path of my life to some degree. And if you can open up about something like that and show the people reading the application that there's more to you than just extracurriculars and grades, which are measured on paper, that is amazing. And those things are usually things that your teachers also don't know about you. So that kind of like completes the puzzle of who you are, because they have the version of you in school with your extracurriculars and your recommendations, but there's this whole private you which is still missing, and some of the private parts may be filled out by extracurriculars, but there's still a lot like about you, your family, your friends, which isn't there. So writing about these things is great because it gives them a complete picture. Big tip, have people read over it, but importantly, don't let them correct too much, okay? Take your criticism, apply what you want to apply from it, but if you feel like you're kind of losing your voice in that essay, don't apply it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions about my UWC experience or why I applied and my application and the experience of applying, feel free to message me. On my blog, there's a contact section which is linked down below, and you can message me there, and I'm definitely gonna get back to you if you leave your email there. And yeah, thank you guys. Bye.